Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Metrical, Linode, and Indeed. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, as always, is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've been having a lot of get-togetherness with my family this week. I've had everybody home for about 8 days now, and we're getting a little stir crazy, but we're also kind of, I think, coming up with a routine that works for everybody.
That's
so
good.
far. Yeah. How about you and Sylvia? Everything okay?
We're okay. We're fine. We're locked up at home. We're coming into, let's see, about 2 full weeks at home at the moment. I went, as we record this, I just I went to the supermarket today. Finally, I spent an hour in line in the parking lot of the supermarket under the sun. We have really beautiful weather here right now, which is such a shame that we cannot go anywhere. But we're at home and we're working. We're playing with the dogs. The dogs are the ones that are really suffering because of this lockdown. You know, the parks are closed and they love running at the park, and just, every day we go there for like 30, 40 minutes and they run and they run and they jump and they run. And
right.
They haven't been able to do that since the lockdown started. So that's too bad.
Yeah, that is too bad. Well, we've both been cooped up, and you and I thought that I know a lot of people have done this, but I think we're going to talk today a little bit about apps that are related to working at home, because it's something that you and I have done for a long time, but it's a little different now. I mean, as you said, we're a little cooped up. I mean, I think one of the things that I've certainly found over just the past week, where I really haven't left to do anything, is that I've had to really adjust my expectations about what I can get done and when, because usually, my days, even though I work from home, I don't have anybody around during the day. My son is at school and my wife's at work, and I'm here by myself. But that's not true anymore. And so I've had to adjust and kind of help out with new things around the house. Plus, my oldest son is back from college because he's remotely learning for his final semester of college. And so the house is a lot fuller than normal. And there's different things that have to be done that are different than they were before. And one of the things I've been trying to do is adjust my, as I said, expectations as to what I can get done in a day and when I get it done, because there's just parts of the day where I have to do other things. How about you? Has it changed the way you work from home at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. If only because we've been trying to wake up earlier just to make sure that we get more things done in the morning, and that is very different for me because, whenever possible, I always like to wake up at like 11 a.m. 11:30. We've been trying to wake up at 10 a.m., which has been a struggle, and of course cleaning the house and making sure that we play with the dogs inside as much as possible. But we've been trying to work in the afternoon and maybe sometimes push it into the late evening and reserve the morning for like doing things around the house and playing with the dogs. So that's been a bit of a change. And also we're used to, like, usually Sylvia goes out every day. She goes to class. She needs to teach her own class, and she's not used to being at home every day. Whereas I'm more used to it, but she's not, and therefore, like, I've been trying to, spend as much time with her as possible, because I can tell that she's, she's really struggling right now to adjust to this stay-at-home schedule.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I've kind of been doing the same thing, especially in the evenings. Making sure that I just don't disappear for the evening too, because I don't know. It's harder on people who are used to being gone all day. And so I've been trying to spend more time with the boys and Jennifer too.
Yeah. So you mentioned that a bunch of other podcasts have done, working from home, but I can tell you that nobody talks about the apps that we do.
No, not at all. And you know what? I think we need to talk about more than just productivity apps. I mean, that's the stuff that we use day in and day out to get our jobs done. And we'll cover some of those. But I think, given all the stresses in the world at the moment, it's important to also talk about ways to relax, whether you're working or not. Because I don't know about you, but I've really cut back on the amount of news I'm consuming. I do check, I do tend to check when I get up in the morning and then maybe again around dinner time. But for a few days, I just got sucked into the vortex of like CNN, where every 30 seconds there was a new horrible headline from somewhere in the world. And it becomes depressing and stressful very quickly. And so I've been trying to find ways to kind of limit my exposure to that, to just, staying informed, but doing it in bursts during the day so that I can keep my mind on my work, because that's the other aspect of this. It's not just the fact that there are people around my house now that aren't usually here. It's that with everything going on, it's a big distraction. So it's a little hard to concentrate on what you're trying to get done sometimes. And so, one way to do that, I think, is just to kind of turn off those news sources and maybe avoid Twitter and other social media networks at times. But there are other things you can do too. And I think one of the ones that I came back to after I haven't used it in a while was brain.fm. And, we've talked about this. It's probably been a couple of years now since we talked about it on the site or in the club. And it's one of those, music generator apps that has soothing, calming music that's designed to help you relax. And there's an iOS app, or there's a website and you can just play it over a HomePod or something. It's really nice. I mean, it's a good way to try to unwind a little bit while you're trying not to, when you're a little anxious about what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I've been using Brain FM for a few years, and I gravitate toward Brain FM whenever I'm working on a big story and I really need to be able to concentrate. And I find it like I don't know if the science that behind Brain FM is real science or like pseudoscience. I don't know, but it does the trick for me in that, like, that type of sound. I wouldn't even call it music. It's like this series of like AI generated sounds. They really do the trick for me in terms of like I'm not listening to anything else, and I can get in the mood of typing quite quickly actually focusing on what I'm supposed to do. So it's really nice. I don't use it all the time. It's not like every single day when I'm working, I put on my headphones and Brain FM. But when I need to, especially when I need to get started on a story, and I just have my outline, I like to put that on. I've also considered, like, for those times when I struggle to fall asleep, instead of like taking a sleeping pill, which I'm super opposed to. I really don't like that stuff. I tried it a couple of times and I really don't like it. So relaxing music to fall asleep is a thing that I do, and I have used the Brain FM relax mode for that as well. So like fall asleep with my AirPods, and it's not ideal because then the AirPods are usually in the morning, like somewhere in the bed. And one time I found one of my dogs trying to bite and, chew on the AirPod, which was unfortunate. That happened years ago with my original AirPods. But it's either that or like I put on some music from like John Mayer or Death Cab for Cutie and I fall asleep. So that also works.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. And, I've been listening to a couple of Apple Music playlists that I like. One in particular, Nightcap, is a nice one. It's very, very mellow. And another thing I do is with the chill mix that comes out on Sundays, I usually listen to that. And sometimes, it's like most of these Apple auto-generated playlists. Sometimes it's really good. Other times, not so great. But as I listen to it, I drop songs that I like into my own personalized playlist just called Mellow. And every now and then when I need to do, like you said, get started, maybe it's early in the morning and I'm not quite awake yet and don't want to listen to something really loud, or I'm trying to get started on a story, or I'm a little stressed out, whatever it is, I do that too. And that's also a good way to go.
Yeah, I've been listening to Apple Music, of course. I have a bunch of new releases to check out. I know because I just opened Music Harbor on my iPad Pro, and we talked about Music Harbor a few weeks ago. It's the app to keep track of new music releases, and I know that there's a bunch that I haven't checked out yet. So I've been doing that on Apple Music, and I've taken the time to reorganize my FLAC music library. I published a few days ago on Mac Stories an article about this Mac app called Meta, which is an app to fix your metadata. If you have a local music library, you want to edit metadata, so like fields of the actual music files that you own, like the title and the album and the composer, that kind of stuff. There's this app that I covered on Mac Stories. We're also going to talk about it, I think, on Mac Stories Unplugged, which is our Clap Mac Stories exclusive podcast. So we talked about Meta in that episode of Unplugged. I've been doing some reorganization. I purchased a couple new FLAC music albums, and I just saw this morning that because I subscribed to the newsletter of one of the websites that I used to buy high resolution FLAC music. It's called HD Tracks, and they just emailed me today to tell me, and I'm probably going to purchase this because I've always been a fan. There's a new 24-bit remastered version of Metallica's Master of Puppets, the album. So there's a new 24-bit high-res version of that. And I'm probably going to get the one because I really want to listen to that with my good headphones.
Yeah, those headphones are amazing. I got a quick demo of them from you when I was in Rome, and they're really incredible. I mean, because you really do hear things that you wouldn't normally hear in the music with something like AirPods. You know, the other thing that I've been pretty excited about recently that I as we record this, it's killing me because I still haven't actually set it up because you and I have been pretty busy this week, which is Animal Crossing on the Switch.
Yes.
Because I just feel like that game is made for the circumstances we're living through right now. I mean, you set up a desert island, you go around, you collect things, you socialize with the other animals on your island. It's just a really mellow game, and it can kind of be whatever you want it to be, a little bit like Pokemon in that way. I mean, you don't have to, in Pokemon, you don't have to do the competitions. You can just kind of wander around and collect. And Animal Crossing's a lot like that too. You can kind of focus on whatever aspect of the game that you want. And so I'm really looking forward to checking that out later today after we finish our recording.
Yeah, I also purchased Animal Crossing digitally on my Switch, and it's also been waiting for me. I kind of wanted to start playing last night, but then I got sucked in competitive Pokemon again because I made a new team for... so right now we're in Season 3 of competitive double battle of Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I've been kind of struggling with this team because it's a new team and I still got to learn all the details. And so I've been kind of struggling in the Great Ball tier, and I've been trying to make it to the Ultra Ball and eventually to the Master Ball tier. So I've been playing that. And it's always like whenever I play Pokemon competitively, because even though I made it to the Master Ball rank in Season 2, I'm still very much new to all these. And so because every season there's new Pokemon, new abilities that are officially allowed when you play online, there's always every season I'm a newbie, right? Because I still got to learn what does this mean? And so I've been kind of struggling with some of the new Pokemon that have been allowed by the Pokemon Company in this season. But it's always a fun learning experience. And if you're anything like me and you're also you've been listening to me maybe, and you kind of want to get into competitive Pokemon play, I would absolutely recommend 2 channels on YouTube. The first one is called Cybertron VGC, and it's made by Aaron Zhang, and he's one of the official commentators for whenever the Pokemon Company does a stream on Twitch of a local tournament. He's one of the commentators that the Pokemon Company relies on. So he's really good at describing what am I doing now? What's the strategy and whatnot? And the second channel, of course, is Wolfie Glick. So he does, Wolfie does, he's the 2016 world champion of competitive Pokemon, and he has a YouTube channel. He's really good. It's really fun, and he's highly technical, but in a way that even somebody like me can understand. So because I've been struggling this season and I've been learning a lot, I still haven't started Animal Crossing, but it's just been it's been out for less than 24 hours. So I'm probably gonna play some Pokemon tonight, and then finally get started on my desert island.
All right, that sounds good. I've been playing more Pokemon lately too because I've been dying for Animal Crossing coming out, but I'm still enjoying Sword and Shield. But I'm definitely setting up my island later today. All right, before we leave games, I do want to mention an iOS game that I reviewed on the site recently called Round Guard, which is an Apple Arcade game. And Apple Arcade, it got off to a really good start with a lot of great titles, all kinds of really good artistic indie titles. And then it really sort of stalled from about, I'd say, U.S. Thanksgiving through, the latter part of February. And now, though, we've had Crossy Road Castle came out, which is very good. We've had this Round Guard, and then there's another one that just came out. I'm gonna forget what it's called. I think it's called Spider, maybe.
Yeah, Spider.
Yeah, Spider, and I want to check that one out because it looks kind of interesting too. So I've been pretty happy with the it's more like one game a week now, which is a lot more manageable. But I have really enjoyed Round Guard because it's a little bit like Peggle. It's a Peggle style game mixed with a dungeon crawler RPG. It's really a little bit strange, but you're launching your character into these pots and enemies and things, and he bounces all around and eventually off the bottom of the screen. And along the way, you're collecting items and points and all sorts of things, and trying to avoid dying and having to start all over again, and kind of the classic dungeon crawler RPG type of style. So it's one of those games that is very hard to put down. So if you're looking for a distraction, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I gotta check out some of these new Apple Arcade games eventually. It's just that the Nintendo Switch has been so good with games.
Oh, I know.
Like, and it's kind of funny because like this week we've seen like Microsoft and Sony both announce the super highly technical specs of like the Xbox, what's it called, the Series X, and the PlayStation 5, and like what they're talking about teraflops and like speeds for SSD access, and like Nintendo is just there minding its own business and releasing Animal Crossing, and my timeline
collecting all the money in the world,
collecting all the money and the bugs, and my timeline right now is full of screenshots of people just playing Animal Crossing.
Yep.
And
same here.
You know what? Even without the teraflops, the game looks just lovely. Because as always with Nintendo, it's always in the art style. It's always in you don't need teraflop. Well, and I'm not saying you don't need teraflops to make a great looking game, because I know that we'll be seeing fantastic looking games on the PS5 and the Series X. But even with an underpowered console, you can still make something that is beautiful and pretty and fun. So
yeah, and compared to the old Animal Crossing games, it's great because what the best resolution before was whatever the 3DS was, I think, right?
Yeah, like 400 by 200 or something. I don't
Probably.
know. So anyway, I gotta go back to some of these Apple Arcade games eventually. I also wanted to briefly mention the fact that because I have a lot of time to spend at home, I am once again reconsidering my read later setup. So because I've been liking NetNewsWire on the iPad so much lately, especially because right out of the gate it works perfectly with the new trackpad mode of iPadOS 13.4.
Right.
I've been using that for RSS instead of Reader. And of course, in Reader, in addition to my Feedbin account, I also had the Read Later account where I have been saving some articles that I wanted to read. And NetNewsWire does not have that kind of feature. But I've been thinking, like, what if I actually used Raindrop, my bookmarking system, for Read Later stuff as well?
I had a feeling this is where this was going.
Yeah, so I created this shortcut that lets me send articles to Raindrop in a couple of seconds by using the new Zapier integration that they have. So I have a shortcut that is literally 3 actions that takes the current Safari webpage and sends the link to Zapier. And Zapier, then I created an automation there that sees the link, saves it into my Read Later collection in Raindrop, and then sends me a notification with a push cut. So like I run the shortcut, it runs in like a second, and a second later, I get the alert from Zapier via pushcut saying the link has been saved. And it's nice because in Raindrop, they go into a specific collection. Articles are fully searchable. So the Raindrop on its own gets the title, the hero image of the article, the first few lines of text from the description. And of course, everything is fully searchable because they do full text search for each article. So I can search by title or I can search by topic. Like I can actually search the contents of all the articles that I have. And also each article in Raindrop, because I pay for the pro subscription, is also saved with a permanent copy. So it's actually like a cached version of the web page, so that even if the website is down, I can still open the permanent copy and read it if I want to. So I've been thinking about that, like maybe I can actually read articles this way, and when I'm done reading them, I can throw them into an archive folder, and so that later, if I want to, I can always find them. I'm still not sure because I really like the unification process that I had going on in Reader with Fitbin and Read Later in the same app. But as I said, something I'm playing around with. I'm not fully committed to it yet, but it's a nice workflow.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting approach to it. I mean, I think the thing that Reader has that's really nice is just the fact that it's all right there in the same place. And it also has, it has the extension that you can easily move things into Reader from any other app. And so I don't know, I even do things like I'll throw tweets into the Reader Read Later service just for things that I know I want to take a look at more closely later. And so I usually at the end of the day just kind of go through whatever I collected that day and then process them from there. It really has become like a bucket for me of any little link or bit of information that I just don't have time for at the moment. I don't want to be distracted. I throw it in there and then I spend a little time at the end of the day cleaning it up. And so I've got a lot in there. I mean, I haven't really, one thing that I don't think Reader does a very good job with is making it easy to delete those things. You can, there's a little X button in the UI that you can tap, and there is a keyboard shortcut. So if I have a keyboard attached to my iPad, it's pretty easy to delete those things. But I find it a little tedious to kind of go through and poke at the little X for every single individual article. I'd like to have one of those. I'd like to be able to do the 2-finger swipe down just to select a whole bunch that are maybe old or whatever and clear them out of there and manage them a little better that way.
It's funny you mentioned tweets because I've been using this app. It's called Tweet Notes. I think it's called Tweet Notes.
Yes.
It's in beta right now. So there's a Twitter account that you can follow. The developer, I believe, has an open test flight beta going at the moment. And it's like, it sort of started as like a joke that we did on Connected about like,
I know.
We wanted this app to save tweets on the side back when Twitter had ruined its iPad app with the additional sidebar. So this developer created Tweet Notes as like a follow-up to Connected. And with time, it's sort of become its own utility. And I've been really liking Tweet Notes as a way to save tweets, which are saved as like rich previews. So you have like a full preview of the text and the author, and you can create different collections. So what I've been doing this week, actually for the past couple of weeks, I have 2 collections. One is called Interesting Tweets, and it's like work stuff, basically. One is called Threads, and it's like longer, interesting threads from people. And one, by far my most used one, is called Cute. And in the Cute collection, I usually just save like dog videos, like dog stuff that I find on Twitter. So basically every couple of days I show Sylvia. Like right now I have the video of penguins jumping down the stairs, a dog dancing with a little girl, a dog running into a pile of leaves, which is super fun. So I've been using Tweet Notes to save these tweets. And I really hope that the developer makes this a real product. It's a Tweet Notes app on Twitter. So you should follow that. There's also a Slack that you can join. I really hope that it becomes an actual shipping product.
Yeah, I do too. I've been using that app as well. And I think I need to spend a little more time with it and think about what categories I want to set up, what collections, because I haven't been doing that quite as much. And I think that makes it really useful. This is a total aside, Federico, but did you see the video of the penguins wandering around the
I
Shed
saw
Aquarium in
that.
Chicago?
I've been all over penguins this week, John.
Okay, all right.
I've discovered that I'm a penguin person. They are super cute and adorable.
When I was in Chile years ago now, I went to an island that was populated with something like 7,000 penguins, and it
Wow.
was nothing but dirt, penguins, and penguin poop. To tell you the
Amazing.
truth,
Amazing.
they're very interesting, cute animals. But when they're that many in one place,
Oh, it must be horrifying.
it smells a little bit too. Anyway, all right. Well, we should talk about apps.
Yes.
Where should we go from here? I guess before we get into kind of the more work type apps, I want to mention exercise apps, because one thing I've noticed with the current situation is that people are doing some special deals for people and that sort of thing. And Peloton has a deal right now. Usually they have an app that you don't have to have their equipment to use their app. Their app has all kinds of guided workouts in it that don't require the equipment that they offer. But I think it's kind of expensive. I think it's like $15 a month, something like that. But they usually have 30 days free. They're doing 90 days free now. So I thought actually I'm going to give it a try and see how it is, because I've been going for walks and running around the park and stuff, but who knows if there's going to be a time when I'm told, like in Rome, I'm not supposed to be walking around outside. I may need to exercise inside my house more. So I'm gonna give Peloton a try. And there are other apps you can use. I know another one that I've used in the past is Streaks Workouts, which works with the Apple TV and the iPad and the iPhone. That's another good one. There's a bunch of others. Do you use any workout apps right now? I'm not really using one. I'm just planning on doing Peloton at some point.
No, I just use the standard Apple Watch stuff.
Yep.
We have a treadmill and an indoor bike at home.
Okay.
So we've just been doing that and, doing some crunches, that kind of stuff, but no specific program.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Metrical, the app for building habits that last. A key to creating a good habit is consistency, and Metrical does just that by keeping a record daily of what you want to improve and showing it to you in a beautiful calendar UI. There are more than 20 predefined metrics that you can track, and new ones are being added periodically. With a pro subscription, you can even create your own metrics to track. The app tracks measurements in all sorts of different units, time, whether or not you've done something, and even adds star ratings to things. For health-related habits, it works with the health app too, so you can track steps, heart rate, sleep, weight, and a whole lot more. There are even dashboards and monthly stats to help you track long-term trends and become more aware of the habits you're trying to build. You can track streaks too. It's a great motivator, and set reminders so that you always are working towards your goals. Of course, everything syncs across multiple devices using Login with Apple. In addition, Metrical works with shortcuts in Siri, so it can be used with all your other tracking apps or on the move without opening the app at all. All right, I want to tell you about a special deal that Metrical is running just for listeners of this show. The app is free to download, but if you sign up for the pro features using the promo code AppStories, you'll have access to all of those pro features for free for 30 days with no subscription required. Create unlimited metrics, sync them on multiple devices, read data from the health app automatically, and use it with Siri and shortcuts, all by using that special promo code AppStories. To build habits, stay productive, and be in charge, be sure to check out Metrical. The URL is metricalapp.com. There'll be a link in the show notes too. Our thanks to Metrical for their support of the show. All right, so Federico, let's talk a little bit about work apps. And, I suppose a lot of these apps won't work for everybody, because if you work at a big company, you're probably told what you can use and don't have any choice. So these are probably apps that we would recommend to somebody who actually has a choice. But I would like to point out that you can kind of work around those restrictions to some degree if you're creative, because I worked for a long time at a big office. And what I used to do is I would do a lot of my work on a Mac or an iOS device, and then I would just find a way to get it onto a Windows box later. And that would be either through
something super simple like sending myself an email or some kind of online storage system like, Box.net or Dropbox or whatever it is, because I always have liked working on Mac OS and iOS more than Windows. And even back then, I would do my work on other stuff and then bring it into Windows. So there are ways to get around it. So maybe you can use some of these, but we thought we would talk about a few of them. And I don't know, I'll let you maybe kick off with some of these communication apps.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I think the most important one by far is Slack. With the Mac Stories team, we communicate using Slack. We've been using Slack for the past several years. In fact, I remember when Slack was a beta and I was part of the Slack beta when it was all fancy and like only a few people had access to it. So this is my humble brag for this episode. But
Nice.
We use Slack and we have multiple channels. We use DMs, we use private channels. We have some integrations going on, like with MailChimp, with Zapier, so that we get alerts when something happens. We have GitHub alerts going up to Slack. Definitely, I think the extensible nature of Slack is one of the best features and the reason why we keep using it, because we're invested in the product at this point. And we pay for the Teams features, and it's not a cheap subscription, but it's so worth it because we have a full archive. And so many times I remember, for example, having received an attachment from somebody years ago, and I can just go in there and use the search operators in Slack, and I can find this particular PDF or link that was shared like in 2017, and I can find it, and it's really, really, really amazing when you can do that. So for communication with the team and people that we can invite as like single channel users, Slack is really essential to the way that we work. And we've been using Slack forever because we've always been a remote team. So fortunately for us, the current circumstances have not been a huge disruption to the way that we get work done in terms of like the communication of the team, because we've always communicated this way. John and I and my other friends, we also use iMessage a lot. So John and I have a private conversation on iMessage because it's usually faster and like we can share photos and links, and it's iMessage. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but we use it a lot. And for iMessage, I would actually call out a new feature in iOS 13, which has been really incredible for me lately, which is the new search functionality. To find links and documents and attachments and videos that have been shared on iMessage, and you can use this feature in two ways. So you can either search from the main screen of the Messages app, so you just pull down and you reveal the search bar and you search for the message or the attachment that you remember having received or having sent, or in a conversation, you can tap the little info button at the top of the screen, and you're taken into the detail view for the current conversation. And if you scroll to the bottom, you will see these collections of different attachments that you've sent that were actually sent by all participants in a conversation. So these include links with actual rich previews and documents, images and videos, and it's really well done because if you remember, a couple of days ago, I needed to get this PDF that John sent me, and because we exchange a lot of messages every day, it was really hard for me to scroll the conversation all the way back up to a few days ago. So I just opened the detail view and I scrolled to the attachments section, and there it was the PDF at the top of the list. So if you use iMessage and you also use it to share links and documents and all that kind of stuff, make sure to check out the new detail view and the search feature in iOS 13 because it's really well done.
Yeah, the one issue I have with Messages is that it has trouble scrolling past some of the rich content sometimes. Have you ever noticed where you scroll back and it feels like because it's loading progressively, sometimes things jump around and you're like kind of lose where you are. It does that on the Mac too, and it really bothers me. But you're right, the search has gotten a lot better, and so I rely on that a lot more. But sometimes I'm just like, oh, I know Federico told me this thing yesterday and I need the details, so I'll scroll back and maybe there's like a photo in there or something or a link, and it ends up messing up where I am. I'll get just past the photo, and then it'll jump me to another spot, and then I kind of lose my place, and I'm not sure if I'm in yesterday or today or where I happen to be, which is a little frustrating. Hopefully that gets cleaned up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that too. And of course, in terms of other communication apps, all of our podcasts are done using Skype. We've been using Skype forever. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. Sometimes, for some reason, the quality of Skype calls is horrible, but usually you can just restart the call and it's fine. I know that competing products exist for podcasters, but we just like using plain old regular Skype. And particularly this week, I've been using FaceTime video to chat with my mom. My mom has actually been... this is probably another story that I should share on Mac Stories Unplugged, but she's had to repurpose my old iMac, which is still sitting at my parents' house, because she's required to also work from home now, but she doesn't really know how to use a computer. And so I used FaceTime to walk her through the process of getting this iMac. This is a 2010 iMac that was last used in 2012, I believe, or 2013 maybe, whenever Mountain Lion came out. So it was running macOS 10 version 10.8. So I believe that was Mountain Lion. And using FaceTime video and going through a bunch of different problems, but we were able remotely to update that iMac from Mountain Lion up to High Sierra. So that was really incredible. The fact that a 10-year-old iMac is still working, still had all my stuff on it, and my mom just needed to authenticate my App Store Apple ID, and that was it. Like it's really incredible how well old Macs are still supported when you need to upgrade them or do some maintenance type of stuff. So
sure.
We've been using FaceTime video to do that. It's been an experience for sure. But now she's running High Sierra, so that's very nice.
Yeah, that is good. And another thing you can do is I know you put in our notes group FaceTime, and that's something that I think you and I only ever tested one time with a couple of our friends at a time when it was not working very well, and we haven't done it since. But I kind of feel like as if we're in this for weeks on end, I think you're gonna start seeing more people just kind of hanging out in group FaceTimes or I don't know, Google Hangouts or House Party or whatever it might be.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen Sylvia talk to her dance students. They're young kids, and the kids mentioned using House Party, but Sylvia didn't know what House Party was, of course.
Oh yeah,
and they just used. I believe they used group Skype video. I think because I don't believe WhatsApp. You can do video calls on WhatsApp, but I don't think WhatsApp lets you do. Maybe let's do group video calls. I don't know. I never do group video calls because I only video call my mom. So I don't have any brothers or sisters to group video call with.
Right.
But I've seen Silvia do it with Skype.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Linode. Whether you're working on a personal project or managing your enterprise's infrastructure, Linode has the pricing, support, and scale that you need to take your project to the next level. They have 11 data centers spread throughout the world, including the newest one in Sydney, Australia. And with enterprise-grade hardware, S3-compatible storage option, and their next-generation network, Linode delivers the performance you expect at a surprisingly good price. Get started with Linode today with a $20 credit for listeners of this show, and you'll have access to dedicated CPU plans with physical cores reserved just for you, GPU compute plans suitable for AI, machine learning, and video processing, block storage and object storage that can scale to your storage requirements, one-click installs of the most popular apps including WordPress, LAMP, Stack, and game servers for Minecraft, and a whole lot more. Just go to linode.com/appstories and use the promo code AppStories2020 when you create your new Linode account, and you'll get a $20 credit towards your next project. Oh, and you know what? They're also hiring right now. So if that's something that interests you, go to linode.com/careers to find out more. Once again, that's linode.com/appstories and the promo code appstories2020 for that $20 credit. Our thanks to Linode for their support of the show.
All right, Federico, let's move on from communications. And what do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about tasks?
Yeah, maybe we should address how we've been because we're a team, and sometimes we need to collaborate on tasks and lists of things to do. And I think we both agree when I say that, by and large, with the spies, the idea of assigning tasks to each other,
Yes.
and like have, for example, if I create a task and I say, John needs to do this, and then I put in a deadline, and then you on your end, you receive this task with a due date and a deadline. And, nobody likes that feeling of like, oh, now in addition to the tasks that I create myself, I also have this other bucket of tasks that somebody else created for me. I don't think neither of us like that.
No, and it doesn't work very well in reminders, because you and I did set up one shared list that we use very sparingly, because I always feel bad. I feel bad too, like giving you a task and then and setting some sort of arbitrary deadline where it's like, well, I'd like him to do it by now, but it's not totally necessary if he does it by this day. And then you put it in there. And the thing about reminders is, though, it's not even really assigning. I know you can do that in Todoist, and there's a lot of other apps that have better collaboration, but we've been using reminders, and the difficulty with a shared task list is that it shows up in both people's task list. And if I'm putting something in there for Federico, or he's doing that for me, that's now the other person's problem. I'd rather not see it show up in my list of things that have to be done by a certain day if it's something that Federico's working on.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's something I feel like we haven't really 100% solved, but fortunately we don't do a lot of that. I mean, it saves time sometimes when you don't have to actually communicate with the other person and say, hey, could you add this to your list yourself of things to do? But we probably handle it more that way than anything else most of the time.
Yeah, what I think is a more reasonable approach is to, this is also something we've been doing, to use shared Apple Notes instead. So like now in iOS 13, you can share an entire folder in Apple Notes. And when you put a note into that folder, it gets automatically shared with the other person. So that's very nice. And in Apple Notes, what you can do is like you can have a looser format in terms of like, here's a list of things that we need to be thinking about. Here's a list of, and like you can have multiple sections. And so like you could do, here's a list of items that Federico needs to take care of, for example, but they don't actually go into my reminders. And it's just an easier way to maybe collect and group all of these like shared responsibilities, maybe instead of like, as you mentioned, like duplicating them in reminders, for example, or having to like tell the other person, hey, remember to do this, and then the message gets lost. And I know that, for example, if you do that, if you text on iMessage somebody and you're like, hey, remember to do this by 2 p.m. tomorrow. Usually, if you also use reminders, you will see a Siri suggestions box appear in the app that says, do you want to create a reminder for this message that was sent to you saying, hey, remember to do this? Now that's also a new sort of a Siri intelligence feature in iOS 13, but it's really not an ideal system. And I prefer to have like my personal task manager and then a shared space like Apple Notes, or maybe like Trello is also something that we use at Mac Stories, where you can have like these different sections, and you know that every participant is taking care of something, but it doesn't necessarily go into your primary task manager.
Yeah, I think that is good. And I think that Trello has worked particularly well for us with the club, because we organize a newsletter every single week. And what we do is we have a master list for that week's issue. And then we have a bunch of other lists that are dedicated mostly to other sections of the newsletter and ideas and input that we'll use in future issues. And what's nice is that we can just drag those things over from the subsidiary list to that week's issue, and then you can assign a member to that. So I know what Federico's working on and what Ryan's working on and what's assigned to me. And it also, I think it's a nice visual way to get a sense for, all right, have we come up with enough stuff for a particular issue? I mean, is there not enough here? Is there too much? Should we hold some of this for another week? It's a good way to do it visually. I've also been a big fan of the shared notes folders too, because it is very nice for I feel like I haven't lost the notes that you and I have shared in the past the way I used to, where I know now that if something gets dropped in there, I'll get a notification, or if you make an edit, it'll show up in there and I'll be able to take a quick look at it. So it works really well. I think the only thing that I don't like is that if I drop a new note in there and I want to point you to that particular note, if I then share that note, I think it just points you at the folder and not the note inside it. I may be wrong about that, but at least from my end, when I send it to you, it looks like all I'm doing is resharing the folder with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember either how that works, actually.
Yeah, and look, maybe I am wrong about that, but even if I am wrong about it, at least from the sender's end, to me, it looks like all I'm doing is resharing the folder with you. When it's maybe something that's like, oh, look, I made this note about this project we're working on. You need to look at this note, which is oftentimes why you'll see if I text you, I'll mention the name of the note in the text because I'm not 100% sure whether I actually just shared the note with you or the folder. All right, Federico, I think we'll stop there because a lot of these other apps and things that you and I use day in and day out, they're the kinds of things that we've already written about a bunch on Mac Stories and talked about here and other places. But we thought it would be kind of fun to do this in a more comprehensive way for some of the things that are in and around the core apps that we use, communication and tasks, and as well as just kind of trying to relax a little bit at these difficult times that we're going through. So I guess we'll stop there for this week. I want to thank our two sponsors again. That's Metrical and Linode. Of course, you can find both me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is also on Twitter and Instagram. He's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNBOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.